sat for ACTs and SATs. We have freshmen that have sat for ACTs and SATs. Even though the schools are asking for all the testing, I would say don't send that freshman score, And then the parents are worried about is there some way that they can find out? No, the only way they know what test scores or what tests your sons or daughters sat for is by what you sent, period. That's the only way they can find out. It used to be that when the College Board would send out a test report, if you wanted this one SAT sent, every other College Board product was attached to that report, and so they would see everything. It's not like that anymore. The students are able to pick and choose what they want sent. So I still think it's important if they scored well on a certain sub-score on one test, even if it's not their highest composite, but they did really well in the math section, for instance, yeah, go ahead and send that still. These are Office of Admissions, not Office of Denial. They're looking for reasons to admit the student. And so if that sub-score can help the student, we want them to see it. Even if they're not doing a super score, just seeing that can help sometimes. When I was at Michigan and I had a student applying for engineering, for instance, and their overall score was good, but their math sub-score was a little low. But then they took it on another day, and that overall score wasn't as high, but they got a 34 on the math subsection. That helped me in making a case for that student. So we do want to provide the offices with as much information as possible, but we don't need to go all the way back to like sophomore, freshman year and getting that information.
Also, my question is on this, then do they enter in their highest score, even if it's different and different dates? Or is this supposed to just be for the best composite and on that date what they got?
Right, so no, they can do multiple dates here with multiple sub-scores from different dates. The thing is, whatever they report here, eventually those schools are going to need those actual reports, so they just need to make sure they're backing that up with the actual report at some point down the road, whether it's a school that needs it before they make their decision or will accept it after they make their decision. At some point, all of those test scores that need to be sent. So this is a section that I spend a lot of time with my students in the fall with as well, because we're going through all of their test history and figuring out what we want the colleges to see and what they don't necessarily need to see. The same goes along with AP exams. That's another one of the options on there. They can report AP scores, SAT subject tests. Sometimes the students sat for some APs and it just didn't go well. There's not a requirement that they report those scores. Since they have 2s and 3s in their APs, I would say, yeah, we're not reporting those. It's not required. And technically, APs are not supposed to be. AP exams weren't created for the purpose of helping colleges with admissions. We know that's evolved and changed, but I'll tell the student, look, you didn't do that great. Let's just not report those at all. Yes.
One part where you said why they self-report, why you don't have to, but you're saying they don't have to spend so much money and teach school their score, they self-report for saying they're
So the reason would be, let's say the student is applying to 10 schools. That's on the high end for me, but let's say they're applying to 10 schools. And they took the ACT 4 times, and they really like 3 of their subsections. That means they have to send 3 different tests to 10 different schools. That's $12 per score. So I'm a counselor because I can't do math that great, but you can figure out, like, it adds up, right? And so, for many of our families, it's okay, that's fine, we can do that. But for a lot of families in this country, that's a burden. And so that's the biggest reason why a lot of schools have started changing that policy, is because, having those credit card bills rack up that quickly because of students applying to college is really difficult for a lot of families. So that's why there's a difference. So if it's a school that only needs to see the score after the fact, and you're attending that one school, you just send those 3 scores to that one school. The rest of them, you just let them go. Right. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so testing, again, this is a conversation that your sons and daughters definitely need to be having with their college counselor. What do I report here? What do I send? Which schools need me to send those things? The activity section, so you should be able to see a printout or a different variation of this activities list in the handout that I provided you with. These fields, so when they're filling it out, it looks more like this. See a bunch of drop-down boxes. So you're a little limited in how you can word things sometimes, and that can be frustrating for some of our students at times. So some of our students feel the Common App activity section is so limiting that I really can't get into all the amazing things that I've had an opportunity to do during the course of my high school career. And so they'll put together a resume or a CV that they will also send. But what I tell the students is, you have to assume that they're not going to look at that resume, that they will only use what you report here. Because as these admissions offices are burdened with more and more applications every year, and they're not getting any more time to read these applications, they're trying to get through them quick. And so, though I know there are offices that will look at the resumes, and I encourage students to send them if they have them, I also tell them, make sure the most important stuff, even if you have to leave other stuff off, is on here. Because if that reader only looks at this, and they see the resume and they just click right past it as they're reading the application, you don't want them to miss out on that thing that you're considering, this is gold, this is my ticket right here. It's got to be on here. Even if it's, we will work with the students on wordsmithing this because they're limited with the amount of characters they're able to use. It can be frustrating for some students. Now, on the flip side, you're allowed to put 10 different activities, that's it. So some of our students, they're working with us and they're freaking out because how do I get everything that I've done into this little section here? On the flip side, we'll have students that say, Mr. Greenhold, I was only able to come up with 2 or 3 things. Am I going to get into college now? Both of those situations, again, this is where we come in as their counselors. We can sit down with them and help them kind of play with this section a little bit. So with those students who have way too much going on, we're able to say, work with them on what are the most important things, what are the most important specific things you did within those activities that we can make sure that's listed here. How can we condense this in an understandable way, but not use full sentences or maximizing the space? It can be difficult, and most 17-year-olds haven't done something like this before. So again, that's where we come in. With those other students, I'll have advisees and counselees come in and they'll say, Mr. Greenhold, I have 1 or 2 things on here. I don't know what else to put. But I start picking their brain, I start asking questions, and sure enough, 2, 3 has turned into 4, 5. They don't have to have 10 activities. There's nothing that says that. And honestly, most colleges will say depth is much more important than breadth. They'd rather have a student be heavily involved with 2 or 3 things rather than marginally involved with 10 things. So with those students who are struggling to find things to put in there, 1, I'll tell them it's okay. You don't need to fill out every single one of these slots. But 2, Country Day, just the nature of this place, kind of forces you to be involved with a little bit. So we can normally, if I ask them, hey, what club were you in freshman, sophomore year? Oh yeah, that's right, I was in that. Well, we can put that on the activities list. Oh, and that's right, I did JV track my sophomore year too. So all of a sudden we're starting to put things on there. Now, maybe they're more towards the bottom because it's not really what the student truly identifies with. It isn't their big thing, the way that they view themselves. But we still want to make sure they get credit for all the different things that Country Day has made them do over the years, okay? So we help kind of pull that out of some of the students, okay? Yes?
So does the out-of-school activities happen here?
Absolutely. So out of school, it's basically whatever the student has been doing from grade 9 through 12 that takes up time, takes up their weekends, takes up their evenings. Some of it's done here in school, but a lot of the stuff's done outside of school too. So You know, travel or club sports should be on there right alongside their varsity sports. Outside research should be listed right along with in-school science fair type research. Outside service should be listed there. So yes, it's outside of school as well. Yep. Okay. So this is a section that as confident as many of our students are that, Mr. Greenwald, I got this, I can fill this out, I got it, it's not rocket science. I still really encourage them to come to my table, open this screen up, and by the end of that meeting, normally they're like, okay, I'm glad you took a look at this for me because I wouldn't have put this in this way or that way. So, Ann, Stacy, myself, Cheryl, we always sit down with students and look at this section with them. And again, I think it's important for you to see it as well. And so having that conversation with them to make sure that you have the ability to see the application at some point, I think is also very important. And then the last part of the standard common application section. So again, the common part that goes to every college university is the writing section. So you can see the amazing essay that I put in there for you to look at. But that's just, I just wanted you to be able to see the format which they would actually see the actual essay. This is what the students are going to be working on later this spring. And what I encourage the students to do every year, you know, put themselves, think about where their mindset typically is in late April, early May. They've been working hard all year. Maybe they're in a spring sport, maybe they're not, but they're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they just want to finish strong, and get out of here and get going with their summer, right? I mean, that's where, look, some of the faculty's mind might be there too, but the students are definitely mentally at that point when we give them this assignment. What I tell the students to do is say, look, you could do an okay job with this essay, turn it into D-Will, turn it into Dr. K, get a B+, A-, and it hasn't really affected your grade too much, and you're good to go. Or you could put a lot of work into this essay now, and that's going to save you a lot of time this summer and this fall. It'll give you time to work on all those other essays that I talked about earlier that the individual schools are going to ask for. So if they really put the work in this assignment this spring, they've done themselves a huge, huge favor. The challenging part about this essay, and we do an essay coffee, so we'll talk much more about this, and you'll hear us talk about it on college nights and things like that, but this is just such a different type of writing that our students are accustomed to doing. This is reflective writing, this is introspective, this is really difficult for the guys. This is creative writing. And what we're accustomed to doing here is analytical writing. Read a book and talk about these three elements of that book. And our English department does a great job with our students with that, and our students do really well in college because they know how to do that. But we don't do a whole lot that prepares students for this kind of writing, except for this assignment. And the teachers dedicate quite a bit of class time in talking about this. And so they can meet the students halfway, but then the students need to come in and really engage themselves with this process at a point when their mind is starting to drift to other things. So again, we will remind them to work really hard on this assignment. We actually come into some of the English classes and help with this as well. But it's a huge, huge thing that we do for our students, and the students just need to take advantage of it. So that spring assignment from juniors, hopefully they can come away with a pretty strong working draft. Maybe there'll be some tweaks here and there that need to happen before it's actually submitted, but they can really reduce those things here by spending a lot of time on this. Also in this section, I may as well point it out because it's here, disciplinary history. Now, I normally see a lot of panicked faces here when I pull this up to students because they're thinking, oh man, I'm in detention a lot. I never am in dress code. That's not the kind of stuff we're putting on here, so they're okay. Those kids are okay. Now, if they racked up so many of those, then now they're suspended. Okay, that does need to go on here. But detentions, things like, students don't need to report that. What they're looking for here is any type of suspension. And honestly, if it was suspension due to accumulation of dress code detentions, no, it's not a great look for that student, but is that really gonna prevent a college from admitting a student that in all other aspects, they think this kid's great? What the student needs to do in that situation, if they have to report that, and we help them with that, they're given an opportunity to provide an explanation. We'll help them craft that statement. And then oftentimes, if I know I've helped a student with that statement, I will try and speak to that a little bit in my letter of recommendation as well. So the student's speaking to it, the school speaking to it, so there's consistency with the message. It's supported by the school, so it's not like the student saying one thing, but the school saying another thing. It doesn't hurt a student at the end of the day. Don't let your sons and daughters get suspended, but when these things do happen, it's not the end of the world, it's not the end of their process. We can speak to these things in a specific way. So, since it was here, I just wanted to point it out, but the big question our students always have is, do detentions have to go on here? The answer to that is okay. And then finally, the additional information section. This is a section, it's basically, I'll show you what it looks like. It's an open field, maximum of 650 characters, which is basically another essay. Now, do college reps want to read another essay? No, probably not. If they want to see another essay, they would ask for that in their question section, which we're going to look at in a second here. But students can do some pretty creative stuff with this. A really functional way to use this is when some of our students maybe have to miss an extended period of time at school because of an illness.